You know, it scares my mum every time I crack any part of my body. You know, like my neck, my wrists, my ankles, my knees. She's like, "Doesn't that hurt?" I'm like, "Not really." Like it's more of a for relief, or sometimes to fuck with people. Either or. So it's another month. Oh my god, life is ever changing, or at least currently it's the 19th because yeah, I like to film the first half and the first half of the month, and then it makes it easy when I film the second half because I talk a lot about movies. So let's dive into it. You might notice that I'm doing a lot of trilogies now, and that I'm picking up the letter A by the second half of the month because I'm now going through every single physical media release I have in alphabetical order that I have not watched. So, because I'm trying to watch them all, it's getting on my nerves. We start with Mallrats. I gave it 3 stars. Watched the 4K theatrical cut from Arrow Video. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I'm like, it's fine. I kind of like that I got it on sale at Arrow, but if I had have waited like a week, they would have had a 50% off on their store, which kind of annoys me. But you never know when they're going to just suddenly have a sale. Anyway, on the second, I watched The Animatrix, which I got from that Ultimate Matrix movie collection pack on Blu-ray. It looks so fucking good on Blu-ray. I'd never seen it before. I gave it 4 stars. Really fun. I don't think... I liked the final fight of the Osiris. The second Renaissance was really great, really depressing. Program was interesting, world record. Was actually also interesting. I really like those ones where they're like, oh, people can just break out of the Matrix because they're just that talented. Kid Story was Vital Backstory, which was great. You can watch these, they're all basically 10-minute long short films. So Kid Story was like essential backstory for a character for the second and third film. Beyond was really nice. Detective Story was really interesting. Matriculated was the least interesting one for me, but it is the last one, so I guess that's okay. Then I watched The Matrix Resurrections, which I also gave 4 stars. I haven't watched that since cinema, and I know people hate this movie, and it still is weird to kind of watch it, especially after watching the original trilogy, and the original trilogy is such a thing, but the piece of art that this movie is, it is Twin Peaks: The Return to Twin Peaks. That if you love Twin Peaks, but you don't like Twin Peaks: The Return, it's perfectly okay, because this is much more of a artistic project. It's very much a very different thing. It's an evolution of the filmmaker's style and their language visually and narratively. And it makes sense to me that a lot of people hate this movie because it's not what the original trilogy was. And honestly, I don't dislike that. I like that it's different. It's visually different, the characters are different, it's a very weird film, but it's also a film that clicks for me better by the second half when it's actually about Trinity. And Trinity is the more important character in it, and they need to save Trinity. And I like that, you know? She's like the boring character in the film, but then when she becomes interesting is when the film gets great. And it's kind of like the original film of The Matrix, that Neo's the boring character who becomes really interesting by the second half of it, because, you know, he knows kung fu. And the same goes for Trinity, where like she's not very interesting in the first half because she's a deprogrammed version of her old self, and then eventually becomes herself again. It's just such a fucking beautiful looking film. It's got a great cast to it. Yeah, it's still very weird to watch though. Very strange, but very much interesting film overall, and I do recommend it for people who haven't seen it and who are doubtful because, oh, people hate it, so I probably shouldn't watch it. Just watch it yourself. If you don't like it, you don't like it, but, you know, give it an open mind. And again, if you're a Twin Peaks fan like myself and you were very weird on The Return, but eventually grew to like The Return, it's very similar to The Matrix Resurrections, but a lot shorter. It's like 3 hours compared to 18. It's a whole different, you know, ballpark. Then on the same night, I watched Star Wars. The actual Star Wars. Illegally, I should note, I do own a Blu-ray trilogy set of the restorations, you know, because I bought them on eBay a couple of years ago, pre-4K 80, because this is Project 4K 77, 83, and 80, of course. Again, it's technically illegal to sell them because it's a fan-made project. You can download it from the website. You don't have to spend money to buy a physical release because it's illegal to technically actually do that. To sell it. You can donate to them to say, hey, thanks for putting in this work, but you can't officially buy it. Because they don't have the right to do that, you know, it's a thing. They even note that in like the copyright notice at the very end of the Blu-rays, or just on the releases in general. So it's one of the few bootlegs I have on Blu-ray. Nevertheless, I watched that. Just fun. I've been kind of earing up to rewatching Star Wars because so much media I've been dealing with this year has been indirectly or directly referencing Star Wars, whether it be or directly, or, you know, the Kevin Smith films where they reference Jedi and stuff, and there's other films that have just referenced Star Wars, and I'm like, I gotta watch fucking Star Wars again, oh my god. I gave it 5 stars. I love this movie. And also part of my 1977 list, because I love films from 1977. Nevertheless, so yes, they just specialized 4K release, even though it's on a standard Blu-ray disc, so it's not even the latest 4K UHD transfer, which I kind of wish I had it downloaded, because that's a good idea. They're getting the 4K UHDs without it being on a UHD, you know. On the 4th, I did a triple feature. I did I Don't Want to Be Born from 1975, which is also called, like, it's not in here anymore. It's a friend had a Blu-ray release of it that they had lent to another friend, so I borrowed it from that friend, being like, that's alright, the next Cinemaniacs, I'll give it back to the original friend. They don't even know I have it. They still don't know because they weren't at the latest Cinemaniacs, which annoys me, because now I'm going to have to hold on to it for another 2 months. Either way, I watched it. I think it's called, like, Monster, alternatively. It's got 3 different names. I Don't Want to Be Born as its official name from 1975. It's okay. It's a film that is like, oh, it's a baby who's born, but they say that it didn't want to be born, and maybe it's possessed by a devil or something, and maybe it's like some kind of black magic from a dwarf who cursed this woman. It's okay. It has some fun kills, but for the most part, it's just, what if your baby was a bit annoying, and that's about it. So, yeah. I was hoping for the ending to be more of a twist reveal or whatever, but it really was actually just very obvious as to what was going on the whole time. So, yeah. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. Clerks 2, I watched that on DVD, gave it 4 stars. So far, my favorite Kevin Smith film. I still have not watched many of his films, and I actually really like this one. It's much more grassroots with its just traditional narrative, but Rosario Dawson's great, the musical number's fun, the characters are more interesting. It's more amusing that they're still the assholes that they were in Clerks, but on a different degree, like one of them in particular going on his what can be considered as like a racist fucking rant, where he didn't realize a certain phrase was considered a racial thing, and it becomes a thing, and it's really funny, because he's in the wrong, but also it's a very interesting discussion whilst also just being humorous towards all the characters and how they're reacting to it. It's funny. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. And then I watched For a Few Dollars More, because I'd watched Fistful the previous month, and I watched A Few Dollars More, which I gave 4.5 stars, which I really like this. I love spaghetti westerns. I can't believe I still haven't watched all of Leone's films, because I have all of them but like one, and I still only have like a fistful of, the Duck You Sucker, the Fistful of Dynamite to watch, so... And then I've watched all of his films, bar one, that you just can't get on physical at all, so... Yeah, but I gave it 4.5. Good, fucking banging soundtrack, great visuals. My Blu-rays look really good, so I'm not disappointed that I didn't get the 4Ks, but eventually I'll get the 4Ks from Arrow when they eventually do standard releases. On the 5th, I introduced my partner to 28 Years Later, which I'd watched the previous month. I gave it 3.5 stars last time. This time I gave it 4.5 stars. I loved it this time around. It clicked for me a lot better. The style, the approach, the characters, the music. So much more of it worked for me this time around that didn't work for me on the first time. And I think because it's such a jarring style on its first approach, especially if you're used to the other films, which my partner had never seen the first or second film. And I even said, you don't need to. You can watch this completely dry without knowing what the first 2 films are about, because this film is its own film, its own characters, its own thing, but introduces and reintroduces the world very well. So, yeah. So it's good for new audiences, but it's good for returning audiences, because it's just something completely different, but also still in the same vein. Nevertheless, on the 6th, I watched Joe vs. the Volcano, which I gave 5 stars. This is one that I thought I had logged on Letterboxd in the 6 or 7 years that I've had Letterboxd, but it turns out, no, I haven't. I guess I just watched Red Letter Media do their video and I was like, hey, I've watched this film again, but I hadn't. I love this film. I gave it 5 stars. It's an underrated, apparently cult classic. It's insane to me that it's a cult classic, because I grew up with this film and it's like, oh, but it's Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. I don't know why I forgot her surname for a second there. I'm like, how do people not know of or like this film? It is very strange. It's very different. And I love it. It's such a kooky, weird film, and I think more people need to check it out. I highly recommend it. It's fucking bizarre and wonderful and really fun, and Tom Hanks is great, and Meg Ryan is great in 3 different roles. Highly worth recommending. Again, 5 stars. On the 7th, I watched The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, because I had 3 hours to kill, so I'm watching The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. This is actually the extended version, because the Blu-ray remaster I have, which is still very yellow, but at least is a better restoration than the previous version, is the full extended cut with the redubbed in scenes that were like redubbed in the 2000s or whatever, when they found that footage that was in Italian. They're like, hey, let's just redub it in English with the surviving cast members. Not overly noticeable as to when that's being redubbed, whatever. But it's the film and version I grew up on. I don't think I've ever seen the shorter version. I love this film. I gave it 5 stars. It is just so beautiful. It's so different as well for a few dollars more, to the point that I was like, do I prefer For a Few Dollars More? But by the time you get to the end of Good, Bad, and the Ugly, it's such an epic, like you realize it's such a bigger scale and a bigger type of film than the other 2 films that are pretty much small town Western stuff. This one is like, what if the Western, but also all of America and war and just carnage, and it's beautiful. It's such an experience to watch that, to see that, like, yeah, the cowboy era still existed during the Civil War. Holy shit. And seeing that kind of coalesce, I'm pretty sure this is actually set before For a Few Dollars More, so it's considered by some to be a prequel, even though none of these films relate characters or anything. I know that he does get his, like, I was going to say jacket, but it's poncho at the end of this film, and it's meant to be like, oh, because he has that in, like, For a Few Dollars, you know, for a Fistful of Dollars. I'm like, yeah, I don't think these films are really related. He has a name in all 3 films, and they're all different, so calling it the Man with No Name trilogy is stupid. The Dollars trilogy I will take, but yeah, because that's thematically relevant. But also in the first 2 movies, it's just called that. Dollars. Then they're good, they're bad, and they're ugly. So yeah, anyway, wholeheartedly worth watching. Especially on the biggest screen possible. I've seen it at the Astor before. It's fucking beautiful. Kingdom of Heaven. I watched the extended director's cut 4K. Again, fuck it. Figured I'd watch a 3-hour-long film. I guess I was just doing that. And I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It's so interesting to see a historical epic like this, because you don't get this stuff anymore. You don't get the 3-odd-hour-long historical epic with hugely practical effects and an insane cast. Interesting to see that people don't like Orlando Bloom as the lead in it. I'm like, I mean, I guess, but I don't dislike him. The rest of the cast is so good that it kind of makes you forget that he's just kind of the nobody character, the not the best actor in the world, kind of maybe he shouldn't have been cast for kind of thing, but also maybe they just don't think his character's that interesting. I don't know, it's either performance or his character, and I think his character's fine, and I think his performance delivers that character well, so I'm like, I didn't hate him, but I thought the film was still good. It looks great, sounds great, I enjoyed it. It's a good film. On the 9th, I double featured for Cronenberg. I was going to go out and watch The Shrouds, but I didn't have my car because it was in the shop. And the public transport system was down, which is always good. So I didn't go to the Astor to watch this, but it did premiere that night on the Criterion Channel. So I watched it on the Criterion Channel. Honestly, I liked it, I did. I could have watched it in the cinema, but I'm like, I'm happy with this. I've watched most Cronenbergs at home. The only Cronenberg I've seen in the cinema is basically Videodrome at the Astor, and his one before that, The Crimes of the Future, I watched that when it came out, and that was at Nova, and I'm like, I could have watched that at home. But I still had to wait like a year and a bit for that to come out in physical. Nevertheless, The Shroud's also getting a Criterion release, thank God. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was very amusing. I thought it was really interesting. I love how it just becomes a conspiracy thriller. Like, it's just bizarre that it does that, but it's also very humorous in its approach. It's also very sexual. There's a lot of sex scenes in this movie. I did not expect that. A lot of nudity as well. But good. Like, I enjoy watching that if there's obviously a degree of narrative relevance to it, but I'm also not some kind of weird young prude who's like, no one can have sex in movies. It's weird. I think that's stupid. Fuck it. Let them do whatever the fuck they want to do. Anyway, good. And I think Guy Pearce is also fantastic in the film. So many great Guy Pearce performances this year. But I double featured that with Dead Ringers I got this Shout Factory Blu-ray, the Screen Factory Blu-ray, which has both cuts, but both cuts are just different aspect ratios, so I watched it in the preferred, I think it's 1:66 aspect ratio. I didn't love the film, I gave it 3 stars. It's one that I think I might appreciate more on rewatch, like with most Cronenberg films, you can appreciate it a lot more on a second viewing. I don't know, I feel like I expected more from more body horror from it in a way, which there's only like one really body horror sequence, and that's mostly a dream sequence anyway. But it's more impressive because of the visual performance of Jeremy Irons playing twins on screen at the same time, which looked great, like I saw no visual errors with that. Good performances from him playing twins. It's an interesting film, it has a very interesting topic of discussion. And as someone who doesn't love medical science films, because I'm like, yucky, but I can still watch them, it's like, yeah, it's very interesting. It's, again, just one that I will probably appreciate more on further watches and further analysis and whatever, because it's a much richer thematic film than I think I was expecting and wanting to watch at the time. But, that is how it goes sometimes. You don't love everything the first time around sometimes. On the 10th, I watched Empire Strikes Back. This was the Project 4K80, which I downloaded. The UHD version had to put onto a hard drive and then plug my laptop into the hard drive, and found out that I can change the aspect ratio to make it be projected in 4K onto my TV. Wow, I've never done that before. I did try to plug the hard drive into the TV and watch it off that, but it turned my TV off. Obviously, maybe a 2 terabyte hard drive is not something you should plug into a TV. So maybe a 1 terabyte hard drive, because these films are like 60 gigabytes. Then they're not small files, but it's great. I loved downloading them from the Star Wars trilogy website. And it had that benefit as well as the files that you download from each project, because there's so many variations of each project, whatever, comes with different audio options. You get different subtitle tracks, you get different audio. I could have gone with the original audio from the release. Most of them were from Laserdisc releases from the audio, but then they'd also remastered the audio, so you could listen to it in 5.1. I'm like, that's fantastic, because the original releases were like just 2.0 stereo, but now they're bounced up in the 5.1 and they sound beautiful. And it was great seeing the original print of Empire. I haven't done that since the VHS, since I was a kid. So seeing how the original Emperor looked was great, and seeing how Cloud City looked before they added the CGI additions, which I don't mind the CGI additions, but this is one where I'm like, actually, I think it distracts you in a way, because you're so focused on the pretty visuals of the background that you don't focus on the characters in front of you. I was mentioning to a friend recently how I'm like, it's basically like Touch of Evil, where the opening sequence is a really tense, choreographed sequence, but the original theatrical cut has title crawl on it. Here are these people playing these people. Here's that playing that. Here's the editor. Here's the producer. All that stuff is in the opening title crawl, and that ruins the effect of that sequence, because that's a movie that starts with someone putting a bomb in the boot of a car, then people getting in the car, not knowing that there's a bomb in it, and you don't know when the bomb's going to go off, and it gives you tension and suspense. But the re-edited version gets rid of that title crawl and just gives you the original footage, and you actually feel the tension. So it gives you something to focus on rather than being distracted by the titles. So, yeah, anyway. On the next day, I double featured Return of the Jedi. This is the Project 4K83, which I gave 4 stars. Still like Return of the Jedi. It's not as developed as I would prefer for some of the characters and stuff. Some of them just feel almost useless. Like, why are some of these characters even fucking here? Obviously, watching the original print was just so much better. I prefer the original version over the CGI edition. I remember showing my partner a few years ago before I downloaded the 4K83, but I had the 4K restoration on a Blu-ray disc. Again, that same bootleg that I mentioned. The only reason I didn't do that for Empire was because that was a Grindhouse cut at the time. So they've since released the 4K version. So I got 83 and was watching that. And I showed it to my partner after showing her the original Star Wars. This is a couple of years back. Showing her the original version of Star Wars, then showing her Empire. And when I showed her Empire, it was the UHD. And she was like, this looks much better because it's on 4K UHD. and then we went to Jedi, and she didn't want to watch the despecialized version of Jedi. She wanted to watch the 4K of it. I'm like, no, I'm going to show you the despecialized version, then I'm going to show you why we're not watching the 4K version. And when I showed her why we're not watching the 4K version, the atrocious CGI dance scene, she was like, okay, yeah, that's a fair point. So, yeah, anyway, just rewatched it, fun. Ewoks are great. The same night I watched The Dreamers on the Criterion channel. This is actually the 4K restoration, which is really fun. It doesn't project in 4K. You can't stream it in 4K. But it's the new restoration. I believe it's an uncut version as well, because again, it's the 4K version. I was surprised that a lot of people don't like this film. I thought it was one of those like higher taste kind of French films because it likes French films. It's a film about French films. And I gave it 3.5 stars, but the problem is that, like, I think I even said in my review, you know you've lost your way when sex becomes more important than cinema. So, like, good cast, Eva Green is fantastic in it, but the film has a really good first half, but then by the time the second half kicks around, it's just these three people fucking, and I'm like, is anything else going to happen? Is this just the rest of the movie? Like, I'm not against watch what I'm watching, but I'm also like, you were doing something interesting in that first half, and now you're just doing movie references and having sex. And I'm like, cool. Man. Sure, whatever. So it loses itself in the second half, but it's okay for the first half. Then on the 12th, we went to the Cinemaniacs and watched Looking for Mr. Goodbar, which was actually the 4K presentation from Vinegar Syndrome, which is interesting because it didn't look like a great 4K presentation. I don't think it was projected in 4K, but because I know the Astor can do that, so maybe they just had a Blu-ray transfer of the 4K, and it was like, it looked alright, but some parts looked like a DVD scan. It was very weird. It wasn't until the very end of the credits that it had the Vinegar Syndrome logo that I'm like, shit, that was the Vinegar Syndrome version. Anyway, gave that 4 stars. Really good film. Fucked up ending. Don't watch it with family. Simple as that. Diane Keaton is terrific in it, though. Really interesting characters, really good cast. On the 13th, I showed Helene Princess Mononoke, because she hadn't seen it before, and I was like, well, we were going to watch it at the Astor, but we went to a friend's birthday party instead. And it was great. Fucking beautiful film. She was so transfixed by it that because we got the couch there, she was sitting at the edge of the couch watching the whole final act because of just how visually entrancing the whole film was. It's a beautiful film. I gave it 5 stars. It's one of the best. So, I mean, you can't go wrong. Studio Ghibli, fucking Hayao Miyazaki, phenomenal film. On the 14th, this is when I started doing the letter A. So we started with Abigail. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was definitely not what I expected for part of it, because I knew it was eventually going to be a vampire film because they advertised that too heavily, and I think that kind of ruined the twist because you get 50 minutes in before knowing it's a vampire film, even though there's enough stuff to kind of, tease it, but obviously they were just, like, not faithful at all to, like, yeah, we don't think the audience are going to watch a film that's people kidnapping a child. Instead, we're going to tell everyone that she's a vampire. There are other twists along the way, and it gets very bloody, which I like, because it's the same guys who did Ready or Not, and the way that they did blood in those films are the same way they did blood in this film. So if you've seen Ready or Not, you kind of know what to expect, but I think that that's great, because it's really cartoonish, and I love it. Like, I got a friend who watched it, and she wasn't as big on how cartoonish the blood stuff was, and I'm like, that's what's so great about it. So, the fact that they did that several times in this movie, throughout the runtime, it's fun. And it's just as an interesting variation of vampire stuff. They're like, well, we know all this stuff about vampires, even though they can't actually be real, but I guess they are. But what will stop them? Will this, will that? And they do a test and they realize, oh, we're fucked. So, yeah, good cast too. Dan Stevens is great. The girl who plays Abigail as well, she's really good. You got, Catherine Newton's in it, she's great. Melissa Barrera is great. Alicia Weir is the vampire girl, and she's fucking great. So, yeah, I heard she was in a Matilda musical, so I should probably check that out as well. Anyway, then I watched About Time on Blu-ray, which I had not seen. I gave it 4.5 stars. I was not expecting to be sad at the end of it, because I'm like, what the fuck? I signed up for a rom-com about a guy who sucks at getting laid and uses time travel to try to make his romantic life better. But then he solves that within the first act. And then the rest of the movie is just life and what you can use the time travel for, and how people die and life gets hard, and it's like, wow, this is not what I expected this movie to be. Really good. Really, really good. I am very keen to rewatch it. Very beautiful film. I highly recommend it. Then I watched on the 15th, I did a triple feature, technically. I watched Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, which I gave 2.5 stars. It's not a bad film, and I do like the first one more, but I do like how this one actually, he goes to nature, he goes outside, rather than just being in New York or whatever, LA, whatever fucking city in America he's in the first one. So it takes a different approach for a sequel, good, but I'm just wasn't in the mood for that level of how Jim Carrey was in the 90s. So I'm like, I'm not really big on that right now. Like, I could appreciate that more if I had binged a couple of Jim Carrey films and I was in that mood, but I'm just not. So yeah, kind of let me down for the film for a bit. It's okay. I gave it 2.5. It's bearable. I have it as a 2-pack, hence why I letter A. So yeah. Then I watched Across 110th Street, which was very good. I gave that 4 stars. Really interesting, I'd say semi-blaxploitation film. It's considered one of them as a blaxploitation film, but it's got a very different style to it than most blaxploitation. Very gritty, still very urban. Great soundtrack, good cast. Part of that cast was Anthony Quinn, which on the Blu-ray release for imprint, they had Anthony Quinn in the original, which is a 1990 hour-long interview doco talking about him and his career up until that point. He lived for another 11 more years after that, and they did another one called Anthony Quinn, His Final Words, and that was just him talking about the last 10 years of his career and then some other stuff which was not on this release, unfortunately, but really good. I didn't realize he was in so many films and how prolific his career was, so it was a really good examination of that. Ironically, they didn't even touch on Across 110th Street. Really funny. On the 16th, I did Affair in Trinidad from the Indicator release, which I thought it was alright. I gave it 3 stars. It's Rita Hayworth's great and John Ford's pretty good, but it's the film and narrative-wise was not that captivating. Her performances were great. She did some musical numbers, which is always fun, and she looks phenomenal. But I'm it's a noir that's just a bit too tacky and boring for its own good. Yeah. Still, not a waste of time, I wouldn't say, but it does feel weirdly long for a 98-minute long film. It feels like it's 2 hours, which is not great. Then I watched The African Queen, which I hadn't seen at all, which was the new, now old 4K from Masters of Cinema from Eureka. They've now since done a UHD, and I'm pretty happy with this transfer. It looks fantastic. Promised an adventure film, turns out actually just a romance. And I was all for that because the chemistry between Bogart and Hepburn was fucking great. They look really, interesting in the film because I had never seen Bogart in colour before, and with a beard. So that was brand new to me. And then seeing how Hepburn just looks so disheveled throughout a lot of the film, both deliberately and not, because I'm pretty sure she got pretty sick while they were filming it, because it's on location, which is also very new for that period of film, that they went to Africa and fucking filmed this there. Not all of it, but a lot of it. The rapid stuff, they did still do some blue screen stuff, reprojection stuff, which looks fine for what it's worth. It's really funny when they cut to the exteriors of the boat going down the rapids and you've got 2 dummies just sitting there on the boat. I'm oh, that's funny. But then, yeah. But still, interesting. It's not the huge adventure film that I think a lot of people, modern audiences, want from a film like that. I think people expect an Indiana Jones-esque thing, or that one that Michael Douglas did. Romancing the Stone, I think people expect that now, where it's proper adventure. They go into caves and shit. It's nope, it's just people on a boat escaping the Germans in World War One, and that's it. It's just the journey of them just traversing this river in Africa that they shouldn't be able to. They should die during it, but they don't, and it's great. And they go through all this hardship and stuff, and fall in love, and all these great romantic adventure stuff. So I really like that. It's like that Jungle Cruise Disney movie, but actually good, and not stupid as fuck. So yeah, 4 stars, good film. Then on the 17th, which is my most recent watching, I did a triple feature of The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad, which I gave 4 stars. The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, which I gave 3.5 stars. And The Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult, which I gave 3.5 stars. I like the first one the most of them, hence the higher rating for it. I grew up on these films, love them. I realized I had not watched them since before getting Letterboxd, and I'm the new one's coming out, I need to rewatch the old ones, and I love the old ones. I prefer the Police Squad TV show more. Police Squad TV show is fucking incredible in contrast to the movies. The movies are much more just movies, but I still like Zucker, Abrams, Zucker, their stuff. The first film, great all-rounded, fucking amazing gags, great one-liners, fun characters. The second film, more 90s political stuff with Zucker's particular approach to the Bush administration, which I didn't know a lot about when I watched these as a kid, but watching them now and knowing a lot more of that history, especially with like how the 90s America targeted like their Middle Eastern enemies and shit like that, and how Abrams was just riffing on all of that because he also does that in the Hot Shots movies, and I'm like, yeah, that would make for a good triple feature, Naked Gun 2 and then the two Hot Shots films. Very similarly aligned in terms of their like discussion on politics. But it has some great gags and still a lot of fun narrative. It's basically still the exact same as the first film, like that Frank's now ex is working with the bad guy again. Oh, who would have thought it? It's basically the same narrative done twice, but just a bit bigger than previously. But then the third film, which I think I prefer the third film over the second. It's always tough to say. Is more inventive with its narrative because it's Frank's in retirement, his wife's a lawyer now, she wants to have kids, and then he doesn't have the anxiety of having kids, he's just does one extra job, and it blows up from there, and instead of the wife being, she works for the bad guy, now they get captured by the bad guys, and he goes to prison, has to break the bad guys out of prison, all this extra stuff. The whole final act being set at the Academy Awards is fantastic. It's insanely iconic. There's a lot more humor in it that hasn't aged well. Like, the other two films don't really have that problem of this humor hasn't aged well, like, from modern audiences or whatever. I'm like, the third film's still pretty, like, it's still pretty homophobic. It's still pretty transphobic. It's like, there's stuff like that doesn't work as well. I'm like, if you cut out just that one scene of the hot blonde revealing that she's actually maybe a dude, it's like, and just Frank's reaction to it, which is very humor of the time, then it's like, if you get rid of that, like, if they hadn't put it in initially, per se, then it's like, much better film for it. But that being the result of it was like, that feels uncalled for and just a bit, I'm like, I don't really think that was ever a funny joke. I mean, some people would definitely still find it as a funny joke, but those people have their own, agendas. But then I found it amusing how, Frank's the stay-at-home husband and he actually enjoys it, and there's like an emasculation to it, and that's meant to be the joke, but I'm also like weirdly fascinated by the fact that he actually just genuinely enjoys it, and that's again meant to be the joke. Oh, he enjoys doing the woman's role, and the woman has a job, and she enjoys doing the man's role, and like, but she also wants to have kids, which is the woman's role. I'm like, man, there's so many conflicting ideas here. I don't know. It was interesting. It had a different take on like everything that had been set up from previously, and it was just a different style of narrative. So I just kind of enjoyed it more for that. But I did think the second one was a bit funnier. For some of the gags there, I hadn't fully realized what they were talking about and found them to be funnier than the third film. But the third film was more inventive. So I don't know. It's hard to say. What else did I watch this month? Whoa. Yeah, so now we're talking about more movies. We have After Midnight, which I double featured on the 19th of July. I gave it 2.5 stars from Scream Factory. It was not great for the first hour. It's an anthology film. It's like Dead of Night, where it has a great wraparound story. It's very underdeveloped wraparound story. It's a pretty shit wraparound story. It just has a good ending, but it literally just rips off Dead of Night. So if you've seen Dead of Night, you've seen the ending of this film anyway. The first short story was poorly directed. I couldn't tell if it was meant to be a comedy or a horror film. Its soundtrack came straight out of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, but like the poorer sequels, so it just felt really shitty. And also, it turns out it's directed by like the same guy as like I think Dream Child or some shit. The second story segment wasn't great either. They're all pretty shit. Allison's story was okay. That was the main wraparound. The Old Dark House was just too cheesy and dull. A Night on the Town was okay, but it was a step up, but it wasn't as good in quality. All Night Operator was great, really like tense and thrilling, really well directed, and you can tell it's got some more energy to it because it was actually had a different editor. Like they credit, hey, this person edited this one segment here. That's why it has a better flow to it and feels better because they got someone good for it. Who'd have thought it? But yeah, so if you like anthology films, it's not bad. It's 90 minutes. It's the kind of movie you could either really fall asleep to or just be like, have it there, why not? If you're doing a marathon of them, it's the kind of movie where you could have your dinner whilst watching the first hour, but then when the last half an hour comes in, you can really sit down, tune in, and really enjoy. So yeah. I watched Afterlife from 2009 right after, a movie my dad bought on Blu-ray and doesn't even know what the fuck it is. I thought he bought it from my mother. He didn't. He didn't even know he bought it. It's got Christina Ricci in it, Liam Neeson, Justin Long. It's very much you would blink and you'd wouldn't even realize it had existed. I don't think many people know it existed. It's called After Life. It's okay. It's a first-time writer-director. They haven't done anything since. It's meant to be a thriller because it's Christina Ricci dies in a car accident and she wakes up on the the funeral home, whatever, and Liam Neeson, who can talk to the dead, is the one who's fixing up her body, and he has to assure her, like, hey, you're dead, you don't need to try to run away, and try to find your, ex-boyfriend or all this bullshit, you can just stay down here and just try to enjoy what you have left of life until you get put in the ground. But the whole time you're meant to be questioning, is he actually telling the truth? Is he talking to the dead or not? Because she can move things, she can get up. She breaks a bunch of shit at one stage, so it's like, how does that work if none of this is meant to be happening? Justin Long's also there. He's not great. He's just forgettable. He's just the boyfriend who becomes depressed because she wanted to propose to her and then she ran off and got killed in a car accident. So he's depressed the whole time and becomes an alcoholic and thinks his girlfriend's alive because she keeps screaming out his name, and every time she does, he thinks he sees her ghost. Because grief, it sucks. I don't know. It's meant to be a fucking thriller. It doesn't work as a thriller. If you're interested in seeing Christina Ricci's tits for like 80% of the runtime, then go for it, because she's naked 80% of the runtime. Because she's dead. So, if that's also your fancy, which I don't think it should be. But yeah, it's definitely one you could sweep under the rug and not even realize it even happened. I gave it 2.5 stars as well. It was okay. Like, it was more interesting than After Midnight, but it was nowhere near as fun, because After Midnight has a fucking banging ending. Like, it fucking goes all out in its final couple minutes, even though it makes no sense. But Afterlife is just kind of, alright, whatever. Then on the 20th, really, was that on the 20th? Interesting. Oh, yeah, because that was a Saturday. So on the Sunday, the 20th, I went to the Astor with my partner and watched The Black Cauldron from 1985, the Disney animated film that basically almost killed them. Neither of us had seen this before, and don't think any of us will see it again. Animation is really cool when the bad guy's there and the cauldron has been activated. The characters look really shit. The characters aren't interesting. It's just not a very interesting film. I gave it 3 stars. I was expecting it to be like the cult classic, like everyone loved it because of how dark it is, and it's got quite an atmosphere and it's terrifying. And to be fair, it is really dark, but it also has the opposite whimsy, so tonally it's very mismatched. It's like, oh look, it's a kiddie adventure where you can go and hang out with your pig, and then here's a skeleton that wants to rip the soul out of the earth and also bring up an army of the dead and kill everyone. It's very weird. It has some beautifully animated sequences for certain, but the story wasn't interesting, the main characters weren't interesting. The voice cast was good. Billy Hayes, who's Witchy Pooh, is one of the witches, which is great. And also the heavy weight of one of the character deaths is very meh. I don't know if I was meant to feel sad about one of the main characters dying, because they come back like 2 minutes later, and I'm like, if the main character had it was basically a suicide thing to destroy the cauldron. If the main character had have done that instead of this other character who was annoying the whole time, then I would have been more invested, but it wasn't, so it was stupid. Not a great narrative direction. But we double featured it with The Sword and the Stone from 1963, which I had seen before. I grew up on this film and I adore it. I don't know if this is the Blu-ray that apparently has like DNR to it. It probably was, but I don't know. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I don't know what authenticity looks in a film like this, where I grew up with like a VHS or a DVD or something. I can't remember. But I love this film. I gave it 4.5 stars. It is really interesting when I see people who dislike the film. People mostly dislike the film because like it's called The Sword and the Stone. It opens with the sword and the stone, and you got to get the sword and the stone. It's like, no, you fucking don't. The opening whole prologue about the sword and stone is emphasizing the world and the characters in the world and what they live in and what's been going on. It's giving you historical context about this world and how all that works. And then you cut to Merlin, who knows that Arthur's going to come by, but he doesn't know who Arthur is or what the deal with Arthur is. He just knows that there's something important about this kid. And it's not till the end of the film that he realizes, oh shit, you're King Arthur. You're that Arthur. Because he didn't realize, because he doesn't pull the sword out of the stone until the last, 30 seconds of the film. Well, maybe the last, 3 minutes or something. Which I think works fine, because it's just an adventure film. It's just Merlin teaching this kid through magic. Hey, let's transform into a fish. Let's transform into a bird. Let's transform into a squirrel. Let's fuck around with people and then just have fun. Because it's an animated film for kids. It's visually delightful. I do think that the animation for a lot of the more intense sequences are better in the Black Cauldron, but the consistency throughout this film, throughout Sword in the Stone, is much better. Everything looks more consistent, it acts more consistent, the characters have more iconic designs. They're much more fun characters. It's crazy that they used 3 different voice actors for Arthur because each one of them kept hitting puberty, which is very bizarre. The whole, is it Madam Me or whatever? Madam Mom? What's her name? Madam Mim. The whole Madam Mim segment is fantastic. It feels like the only segment that you could probably actually cut out of the film because Arthur's not really important to it. Like, he's not learning a thing from it. Like, each one of them, he learns something as a character, but also the kids can learn something as, for responsibility and what things about love and things about, adventure. All these, little morals and whatever, because that's the point of these adventures. And the Madam Mim one was just what if 2 wizards just fucked with each other? What if one of them turned into a dragon, one of them turned into a mouse, one of them turned into a rhinoceros, one of them turned into a squirrel? It's just great. It's just a great combination of what if they just fucked around with each other and kept transforming into things. It's wonderful. So, yeah. Anyway, on the 21st, I watched The Age of Adeline, which I enjoyed. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's another one of the Blu-rays that I'm trying to get through, and my dad has had it for a couple of years now, and I've just never watched it. I've always known what the premise was, that it's Blake Lively is infinitely beautiful because she can't age past the age of 29, which I think is unfathomable. And so, she gets in a car accident in the early 1900s, and whatever, she becomes immortal, and has to basically keep fleeing because the FBI and whatever keep coming after her. And it's basically set in the present day, in probably the 2014, 2015 period, whatever, and she meets another guy. It's a romance. She falls in love with him, whatever, but it's can she stay with him when she's always chosen to not do that, to not stick around for love because she knows that she will outgrow these people and they will die. And it turns out that the guy she's dating is the son of a guy that she almost married when, 30, 40 years earlier. So, which is Harrison Ford. So that's when it makes it really interesting. And I hadn't seen the rest of the film after that, so it was quite interesting to see where it went, and I like the direction. So yeah, it's fine if you're interested in a romance with, time travel-ish. It's not really time travel, but it does show you different sequences and different time periods where she's in different costume and haircuts and stuff. So, but it's not time travel, it's just that period of time. She's just thinking about it. Flashbacking, if you will. Anyway, I followed that up with Jaws at 50, the definitive inside story on Disney+. I gave it 4.5 stars. Really tight 90-minute documentary. It's really interesting looking at the director of the film, who is Laurent Bizarro. Oh my god. He's a French director. I cannot pronounce his name. He's directed over 136 films, all of which are either explorations of people or films, or just general making of. So, the making of documentary guy. He's done so fucking many, so many Spielberg ones in particular. And it's really interesting, because he also did the previous one about Jaws back in the late 90s, when they were 30 years on or whatever. It's 1997. It was was it even 20? Well, maybe 95 or something like that. But 30, 35 years later, they did another documentary. And this one was great. It was really interesting. There was so much stuff that I learned from it, to see Spielberg reflecting on it. It's well captured, it's well shot, it details the making of the film, them making it, them releasing it, and its legacy, your regular kind of thing. The fact that it's all in 90 minutes is really interesting. A good, tight documentary, emphasizes so many details that I really liked to listen to. So if you get the chance, I definitely would recommend it. It is just on Disney Plus, so it's pretty easy to watch, assuming you have Disney Plus. On the 23rd, I watched After the Sun, again, letter A. This is one that I had always heard from people saying that it'll make you cry, and I watched it, and the whole first hour, I wasn't, like the first two acts, I wasn't really into it. I'm like, it felt too disconnected. I didn't really know what I was meant to be watching, but I started to enjoy the characters and their relationship. It's a father-daughter relationship set in like the 90s, but it's also cuts back to what is kind of eventually revealed to be the daughter 20 odd years later, but it's pretty obvious it's the daughter 20 odd years later, and she's reflecting on these memories by looking at these VHS tapes. And that's kind of when I realized what the film was going for. It's disjointed because it's her reflecting on her time as a kid with her father, someone who clearly between the film ending and her 20 years later has died of something. He never dies in the movie. People thought he died in the movie. I thought he died in the movie. I was expecting him to die in the movie. He doesn't die. But it's the tragic events of just someone who, her father in this case, who just is going through like this really shitty time, and also he's at his best and happiest when he's with his daughter, but he can only see her on holidays because he's obviously divorced from his wife, whatever, and she obviously has custody, and it made him immensely depressed because he can't be with his daughter. And so it's like them trying to still bond and trying to relate to each other and just trying to exist with each other in the moment, but you also realize that this isn't an in the moment, this is someone thinking about the moment, and that's what makes it really interesting. That's why I gave it 4.5 stars, because I'm like, I was thinking 3.5, but the last like 20 minutes is really fucking impactful. There's a whole dance sequence with set to Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, and it's really, really well captured, and that's where like the emotion really hits, because that's when you realize what it's really, really about, if you hadn't already. And so yeah, I can see why people did cry during it. I didn't, because I don't have much of that to relate to. Like I still live with my parents. I don't have that kind of divorced parent syndrome like most of America seem to have. I don't have 20 extra years of my life to reflect on, hey, I haven't seen my dad in this amount of time, I'm going to be sad now. But I do find it to be an interesting conjunction, like a comparison to About Time, another letter A film I watched, because that film is also similar, where it's a romance for the first half, but then it becomes about using time travel to spend time with your loved ones who will eventually die. And it's really interesting to see that. And so these are the kind of films that I'm like, I'm not as emotionally developed to experience these films yet, because I don't have that thing. Like, I'm not going to watch this film and think, damn, I miss my dad, because I'm like, he'll be home in like half an hour. Like, I don't need to worry about that yet. But this is a future me will be sad watching this film, because I know that that's something I'll be able to relate to, but I just currently can't. But I understand what it's going for and how well it executes its story and its emotional story, that made me appreciate it more and give it a higher star rating, because it just is a better film for it. So yeah. Anyway, I double featured that with Black Sabbath, the original Italian cut, because obviously Ozzy Osbourne had died, and I was like, I've actually surprisingly knew a lot of his music. I didn't realize how much music I knew of Ozzy's, but obviously he's an influential person. Black Sabbath is an influential band for music in general, and being more into the past couple of years, alternative and metal space, because I have friends who grew up on punk rock and friends in a metal band that I'm like, I'm kind of getting into that, but I'm also just a broad all-around the kind of person when it comes to genres of music. And so, like, I could go from, like, Black Sabbath to, like, a Liza Minnelli song. So, like, I can just do that. I gave it 4 stars. It was so much better this time watching it, because the original time I watched it, I looked up which cut to watch. I watched the one titled Black Sabbath originally, which is the, English cut. And that's the worst one. Because despite the fact that the English dub is really, really good, they narratively swap all 3 anthology stories around, and it doesn't work. They start with the best story, they go to the second best story, and then they end with the worst story. But in the Italian cut, it's a completely different mix-up. You get the phone call story first, which is more mood setting and has some great production design and costuming, and actually is a bit longer, so you actually get a better twist ending to it, which you don't get in the English version, which is great. And so you juxtapose that with the second story, which I think is the most iconic but the weakest one, is actually the vampire one. It has a great start and a fantastic ending. Beautiful visuals. Again, Mario Bava, so it looks fucking incredible. But it just drags its story a bit too much in the middle of it. Like, in the middle of the middle story, it drags. But the start of it's great for the setup, and the payoff at the end is great as well. So it's like, it kind of weighs itself out better. So it probably is still better than the telephone story no matter what. But the third and final story, which is like 15 to 20 minutes long, it's so fucking short and so fucking perfect. What was it called? The Drop of Water or something? Because there's the telephone, the Wordaluk story, which is the vampire one, and the Drop of Water. The Drop of Water segment starts the other version, and because I'd seen the other version like 2 years ago, I forgot most of what happened in this movie. I just remembered not being as fond of the vampire one. But rewatching it, I loved all of it. I just suddenly realized it clicks so much better for me now. Like, the pacing works better, the narrative works better. I'd forgotten a lot of the twists and a lot of the extra narrative stuff, so I was like watching it thinking it was almost like a brand new experience. And watching The Drop of Water this second time around, it's still so fucking good. It was amazing the first time I watched it, and I think because that's the highest one in my opinion, having the other two after was a bad idea. But ending with it, so much better. It's creepy as shit. It's genuinely terrifying, and then it just ends with the end story wraparound with what's his name, Boris Karloff, coming back and being like, "Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm in my creepy costume from the vampire story. Ooh!" And then they just track away, and you realize it's all a set, and you're like, why are they doing that? But obviously it's to give you a little bit of ease, because it's like, just in case this was too terrifying for you and you think he's going to come at you in your sleep, it's all fake. But we appreciate you for being scared. And that's the good. That's how good the quality of the film is. On the 24th, I watched Air Doll from 2009. This is a Blu-ray Japanese film about a sex doll, an air doll, that comes to life. And it's a really interesting story about finding life and having a heart and just experiencing life as something that theoretically shouldn't, especially something that is made as a degraded kind of thing. It's a inflatable woman that you fuck. And it's really interesting. She gets a job. She just tries to live a normal life, but also she comes home every night and she just pretends that she's a sex doll. So the first half is really optimistic and interesting and like quirky. It's very Amelie, but it's got some other films in there, but not as French because it's Japanese and because it's also a Japanese-Korean director. It ends up becoming, I don't know if he's Japanese and Korean, but I know the main actress is actually Korean, which is very interesting because she's playing a Japanese person. At least I'm pretty sure she is. They don't really stipulate, but either way. The second half becomes more depressing. It's not really depressing, it's just got a different, sadder approach to it. But I'd highly recommend it. It's really interesting. It's not pornographic, despite the fact that she's a sex doll. Sure, she's naked for parts of it, but that's just because she's a sex doll. And none of that means anything to her, so I'd suggest it's very interesting. I also double featured that with Alice in Wonderland from 1933. This was interesting. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's from the Kino Lorber Blu-ray. I got it because Lee did a commentary on it, which I'm still yet to listen to. I'd never seen it before, and it's a live-action adaptation with a whole bunch of weird shit. It's basically 72 minutes of just weird shit, of just Alice going around doing things and just seeing different characters that are all in heavy makeup. The Humpty Dumpty part is probably, for me, it was very boring, but it has a great payoff at the end, and I thought it was hilarious. Cary Grant plays a total creature. It's very weird. A lot of weird shit. I'd suggest it. Very strange film. Yeah, why not? And then on the 25th, I did a triple feature. I rewatched Jaws, because after watching the doco the other day, I was interested to rewatch it, and I watched the 4K. I hadn't seen it in like 3 years, and I'm like, nope, still a masterpiece. That wasn't going to be denied. A fucking banger of a film. Who'd have thought it? I followed that with Jaws the Revenge, because I had watched Jaws 2 and 3 earlier in January of this year, and I was going to watch The Revenge, but I hated Jaws 3D so much I didn't want to rewatch The Revenge, and I rewatched The Revenge, and I'm like, I gave it 2 stars. It's I haven't seen it since I was a kid. It's definitely still better than Jaws 3D. It's just nowhere near as iconic because of how bad the effects are of Jaws 3D. It's just dull and kind of lifeless. It's not very tense or scary. It doesn't really have much interest to it in terms of its characters or just anything that it does. It's just kind of a waste, but it's there. Sure. And then I watched Superman from 2025, the new James Gunn film, of course. Watched it with my dad. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. It took me a while to get into it. It might also have been a little anxiety from me because when you go to scratch your nose or whatever, or you just want to tickle the little snot that you got inside it, as every grown adult does. And then I realized I had blood on my nose, so I had a little bit of a blood nose. It wasn't that much of a blood nose, but it was a little bit of a blood nose. But I was fine. I didn't have to worry about it. I was worried a bit. I was like, maybe if it's like when you get a regular runny nose, I'll just like let it freeze up and just dry out, and I won't have to worry about it. And I did, and it was fine. So thank God, because I'm like, this is a 2.5 hour long movie almost. I don't want to get the fuck up. It's 9 o'clock at night. Holy shit! Give me a break. I've been waiting for weeks to watch this film, and now I finally have, and I still liked it. It's got the James Gunnisms, which I think is its best quality to it. I love All-Star Superman. It's one of my favorite Superman comics, so this is a very interesting, almost adaptation of that. Just the factor of you're just in a world, and these people exist, and here's a story, and that's it. And I like that. I'm like, it feels so weird to watch, because when the fuck was the last time you watched a superhero movie where it's just throws you in, you get a story. You don't have to worry about the ins and outs of the whole thing, like the expanded world, or it starts with all this extra introductory stuff and ends with a tease for the next movie or whatever. It doesn't do any of that shit. It just does a thing, and then it goes away, and that's it. And it's wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was visually great. I wasn't huge on the fact that they kept using the Superman theme with a bit of a re-edit to it. I'm like, sure, I guess, like, fucking whatever. If Batman v Superman could use the fucking Batman theme, then sure, why not just do this one as well? Yeah, I thought the new Superman was good. Lex Luthor I didn't love until, like, the last maybe 10 to 15 minutes of his role, where he became much more interesting to me. I do like Nicholas Hoult, so it's weird seeing him as Lex Luthor. I don't buy him as Lex Luthor. There's other cast members that I would have preferred, like Michael Rosenbaum was fantastic as Lex Luthor in contrast. But I liked the guy who played Superman. The rest of the cast I enjoyed. I thought it was funny. I liked the action scenes. Yeah, again, the James Gunn stuff that is more noteworthy in his films that you've seen in the Guardians films and Scooby-Doo and whatever, that was the stuff that really glued it together well for me. So, what else did I watch? And now to wrap up the month, potentially, depends if I watch any films tonight. Maybe I'll be stuck editing this video for the whole night. I don't know. We'll find out when we find out. What have we got? Okay, so the 26th, I double featured Clueless, the new 4K. I say new 4K, I got a new 4K in. I've only ever had it on DVD. I don't think I've ever seen it in HD before. Maybe on streaming once. Doesn't really matter. It's great. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's a classic of the, late 90s. Actually, this is mid-90s, isn't it? 95. I feel like this kicked off that 90s boom of, like, teenage coming of, like, age films, but that are also, like, adaptations of classic literature. Again, this is Emma, and then you get all kinds of shit all throughout with other Jane Austen adaptations and Shakespeare adaptations and all kinds of stuff like that throughout the next 5 to 6 years. So, and it's a banger. It's funny. The jokes are great. The music's great. The characters are fun. The steelbook set I got is gorgeous. So it's a good film. There you go. I also watched The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. Got that Blu-ray on the same day. Missed this one in cinemas. It wasn't out long enough in Australia. It got a very, very short run, which was annoying because I really wanted to see it in cinema. I mean, hell, this with a crowd would have done numbers, but again, I feel like it would have been with a bunch of kids, or like with a bunch of parents with their kids, and their kids probably wouldn't have given much of a shit, so, yeah, so maybe I benefited from the fact that I didn't watch it in a packed cinema with children. I don't know. It depends. But it's great. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's just a great classic 2D animated Looney Tunes film. It doesn't do too much to modernize the type. Like, there's still uses of like smartphones and stuff like that. You have Daffy Duck twerking at one stage. It's a thing. But like, they even go to the degree where, because it's in a aspect ratio, I think it's 185:1, whatever, black bars top and bottom. They have a montage where they're trying to get a job, and it becomes one of those old cartoons, like it goes in 4:3. My only issue is they didn't format it like it should have been formatted. It's still formatted with the black bars, so now I've just got a small square in the middle of my screen. That's the old cartoon. It's still fun, but it's like, you could have expanded that out. Like, come on, it's not hard to just do that. It's an animated film. Like, for the love of God, you can play with aspect ratio here. So anyway, but it's fun. It's a good, like, comedy, then becomes monster movie, then becomes just a great sci-fi romp with some great characters, and it doesn't have any of that bullshit with like, oh, we got to get like a celebrity guest star in, or get like a celebrity actor to do the voice work because we can afford that, and hope that that'll be bankable for people to come watch our new Garfield movie. But no, Chris Pratt is not in this movie. That's how you know it's good. I gave it 3.5 stars. On the 27th, I watched Chasing Amy. I actually went out to John's book launch and got, well, I already had his book, The Creatures of the Screen, but I still wanted to be there because my friends were going to be there, and that was just wonderful. And I'd been to JB, and I'd seen some films I wanted to buy, decided against buying them, and this one, Chasing Amy, was one of those films. I was going to buy this, decided against it because it was only a DVD with no special features. It was on Stan, so I just watched it on Stan, and I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's still very weird to watch. Like, I've been watching these Kevin Smith films in the wrong order. Like, I shouldn't have watched Clerks 2 so early in the runtime. I should have, like, actually watched them in order, because it's like it is its own cinematic universe where you can watch all the films. And the only one I'm missing so far is Dogma, because it still isn't out yet. The 4K is coming out later this year. But luckily, the next one I watched, which only has one reference to Dogma, it's not a heavy reference. There's some casting things, but mostly just one particular direct reference. Actually, 2 references right at the very end credits, but that's the other movie I'm about to talk about. So it was interesting watching this and seeing it unfold as... I don't know, it's weird. Kevin Smith has a weird thing where, like, a lot of his characters will talk in a very natural kind of way, but they're also very... How do I say it? Their language is very bigot heavy. They'll call women bitches, they'll use F-slurs and all kinds of stuff, and it's just... Like, I get it, it's going for, this is the type of vibe that these people talk in, they're not the best kind of people, that's just kind of the thing, and that's what's meant to make it funny, because these guys are assholes, in that regard, but the thing is, even in Chasing Amy, 2 of the main characters are friends with queer people, and there's a heavy queer presence in the film, not just because the love interest is a lesbian, but because there's an actual fucking queer community in the film, and I didn't expect that, and so the fact that you've still got one of the characters referring to, I think he's called Hoyt or something. It's not Hoyt. It's not that stupid, isn't it? It's worse. It's Banky. It's much worse. The fact that he keeps using the F-slur around the queer characters. And it's just interesting. It becomes a conversation all of its own. So, yeah. But I thought the film was fun. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's still very weird to watch. I much preferred the last act of the film because, again, there's a lot of heavy homophobia in it. But again, not really homophobia. It's so indirectly, again, using words without heavy meaning. Like, they don't hate gay people, but they will still use slurs that are hateful. I'm just like, it's so weird to watch this. And this isn't just like a modern audience mentality of like, oh, I'm a new generation of person, I don't agree with this kind of sentiment. It's like, no, I'm trying to see what they're going for here, and this is clearly a character thing that they're going for. So it was interesting, but yeah, it was funny at least. I enjoyed a lot of the characters, a lot of the queer characters I really liked. It's got an interesting depiction of the scene, so I'll take it. On the 28th, I watched Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I also gave this one 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this one a lot more because it goes for a more cinematic and meta-textual approach. it takes all the previous films and combines them all, and then is like, let's also be exceptionally critical of Hollywood. And I really like that. I like that it brought back all these characters. I like that it had like the same people playing two different characters. Ben Affleck plays one character and he plays himself. There's a lot of amusing touches like that. There's a lot of meta jokes like that. It's a great side quest kind of film as well, where we're going from this like from Jersey to Hollywood, and we got to deal with like all this other shit in between. So the destination still is at the end of the film, and the journey is really fun. But the destination still has a lot of there's a lot of time dedicated to them just being in Hollywood and doing the satire. And it's really fun. I thought it was great. I didn't expect a lot of the cameos. The Star Wars character cameos was great, as in like the actors. It feels like a lot of wish fulfillment on Kevin Smith's part. It's strange that Jay and Silent Bob are the main characters. Like, they feel like they should not be the main characters, but the film is aware that they shouldn't be the main characters because they're trying to stop the movie that is about them being the main characters, which I really like. I'm like, that's like the best way to approach this, because nobody would have wanted these two as the main characters. They're greatest side characters. So now everyone who was a main character in a different film is a side character in this. It just has a great role reversal for that reason. It's just really funny. It's a very amusing film. I really enjoyed it. I also watched Crocodile Dundee. I got the Blu-ray... No, I got the DVD, which has the original Australian cut. And my god, this really needs a good 4K that isn't censored. I gave it 3 stars. It's very clearly a funny film, the fish out of water stuff and everything. I think most of what I said in my video talking about the new 4K the other week, I stand by. Like, I never stipulated in that video that Dundee himself might be homophobic or racist or sexist. And you watch the film and you realize, no, it's all just fish out of water stuff, but I don't think he's ever racist in the film, even asking the African-American guy what tribe he's from. It's because that's just... the only black people who knows from his country are Aboriginal people, which are tribal. So there's a lot of things of him relating his own stuff and experiences to this new world, that being, America, New York. Obviously, there's still jokes that are a bit sour now. It depends on, like, the context of the joke and how they land. Like, the infamous trans joke, at least in this case, works as everyone in the bar mocking him, not mocking the trans person, but again, there's still elements to it where it's transphobic in how it delivers the actions, rather than it being a conversational thing of him asking the trans person, oh, are you actually a dude or some shit, which again, still transphobic in its own delinquency. If it's for him just to understand how it goes, then at least he can understand it and then accept it and then move on. They don't do that. They just have him grope the person and realize, hey, that person has a dick, and then that's the joke. And everyone, well, that's kind of the joke, but the joke is mostly that everyone's, that he's like, oh, you guys all knew, you were leading me on. So the joke is that he's getting fucked over by all the people in the bar. But still, but it does come back later in the film. Like, he approaches another person who he thinks is trans and they aren't, and it has the exact same back and forth, but with more of a, I don't know, catharsis to it. It's still not a great joke, but it is what it is. It's understandable as to why this happens in the film. It's not saying that it's good to grope people or whatever the fuck to prove that they're a gender that you don't think that they are or whatever. It's just saying that he just doesn't understand this shit because he's not from... This doesn't happen in the small country town in fucking the Northern Territory, So... yeah, he's just got very outdated ideals. And the film, arguably now, is outdated in how it takes approach of these, ideals. But at the same time, it's a representation of the character, He doesn't understand it, so that's how he tries to understand it. They don't go into further discourse about it. They could have, they should have, but they didn't. But at least, like, the him asking the limo driver what tribe he's from comes back later when the guy saves him from, the pimp and his men, beating him up, whatever, and then he says he's from, like, the Harlem tribe or whatever, so it's showing that he's just from, he's streetwise urban type, and he just works for upper class people, so it's got social commentary to it, and that's a better way that they handle that kind of a joke. So anyway, I give it 3 stars. it's still fine. It works as a fish out of water comedy. It sucks that there's no real plot to it. Like, nothing really happens in this fucking movie. You know, he shows the girl around the Northern Territory. She shows him around New York. He thinks that she's going to get married, so he leaves, and then they get together in the end, and that's it. It turns out it was a rom-com the whole time. However, I did follow that up on the 29th with Crocodile Dundee 2, which I did watch the 4K of, which, oh my god, I really wish I had the 4K of the first film, because the 4K of the second one looks so fucking good. Like, it's just such a nice vista-looking film, especially when they go back to Australia in the second half. Like, this works as a good double feature. It's done 2 years later, it's set within a couple of weeks or whatever, and it still has the fish out of water comedy for the first 15 minutes, but then does choose to drop that in order to do a action film, which is okay. Like, I didn't dislike the film, but it definitely doesn't have the strong upper hand that the first one has. It needed more comedy if it was trying to still be funny, and I think it was still trying to be funny at occasions, but it wasn't really working, because I'm like, what are we doing tonally here? You've shifted from a comedy to just an action film. Like, you can still do an action comedy. And there's elements to it where it's still doing action comedy, but it isn't doing it really well. Like, it worked better for, like, fish out of water stuff or the rom-com stuff. Even though, to be honest, even the rom-com stuff wasn't that funny in the first one. So, yeah, it's mostly just a romantic film and also a comedy. It's not really a rom-com. And this one's a comedy with action, but it's more or less an action film with occasional bits of comedy. You know, it's like, okay, make up your mind. But I still enjoyed it. I thought it had some good jokes in the first half, and then I did like when they went to Australia in the second half. There was just a lot of weird stuff in between, just a very 80s niche stuff that, I don't know, just feels like an excuse to have a movie at times. It feels like an elongated epilogue coda, which it basically is. At least it resolves the things that were set up in the first film, like how does the tourism thing affect their town in the Northern Territory and stuff like that. It's just the only way for them to go back there isn't naturally. It's, hey, we're going to avoid witness protection and go to the Northern Territory, because what crime mob is going to follow us there? And then 2 minutes later, the bad guys show up in the Northern Territory. So they fucking just followed them. Like, of course, ask around. Hey, that one Australian guy that everyone has noticed is here. Where did he say he was from? Oh, this place over here? Cool, we're going to go there because it's that easy. So it's like, okay, sure, whatever. It's not a very smart movie, but it's just fine. I gave it 2.5. It's not as entertaining or new and fresh as the first one, but it's fine. I like it with a different approach, at least, you know? It not being a rom-com again was a smart idea. The fact that it's just, hey, now it's an action film, it's like, yeah, alright, sure, I guess. Paul Hogan, whatever. The same night I watched Shark from 1969. I actually did a YouTube short on this one, which was not an intention. I was just doing a YouTube reel. An Instagram reel. Which was meant to be a story. It evolved from a story to an Instagram reel to, hey, I can also post this on YouTube. The Blu-ray says it's from 1972 and it's a 2-hour long film. It isn't. It's a 1969 film. It's 93 minutes long. It's not great. I gave it 2 stars for a film called Shark, which is based on the idea that, hey, there was a shark in this movie and also one of them might have killed one of the stunt doubles, like the stuntmen. But that's only allegedly. Like, the film never claims that. And then you realize it's just a marketing stunt. And that's still even a maybe. Like, Lee did a video essay on it, which is the reason I have the Blu-ray. This is the Burt Reynolds film. And it's a good video essay that breaks down immediately that it was most likely a lie that someone died during, like, they've got footage of someone getting killed by a shark. But then when you watch the film, you see the guy dying at the start of the film from the shark. They reuse that exact same fucking footage at the end of the film. So it doesn't have the same effect. Like, how are we meant to be dumb or stupid or asleep? Like, what the fuck? Because it is a very poorly edited, poorly written film. I know that it was re-edited despite the director having his own version. And it's just a mess because of it. Like, it's actually a crime film about people trying to get out of one town in the Sudan, and they're like, oh, the only way we can get out is if we get all this gold that's in this boat. But we don't know, and Burt Reynolds doesn't know that there's gold in this boat. He's just going to become a diver so he can try to use the boat to get the fuck offshore, and he can't. And then he's just stuck with them, and nothing really happens for a lot of it. It's like, oh, here's a cop who's a bit of a prick, and here's a kid who he's now become best friends with. And then in the last, 10 minutes, they just like they go down and find out that there's actually gold there, and it's like, oh, there's actually gold down here, we're gonna grab it. It's like, oh shit, yeah, all right, we'll split it 50-50. And then all the twists happen within the last 2 minutes of the film. It even ends with just ends. Like, there's still things happening. Like, there's a boat that's sinking, the gold is in the woman's hands, he's been left in a police dinghy that has no engine, and then it just ends, and that's the end of the movie. It's like, what the fuck? There's not much shark stuff in it either. The sharks, there's in the first scene, sure, and then 45 minutes later, and then at the end, there's not really much shark stuff in it. And it's not very interesting at that. On the 30th, I did a triple feature. I watched Bat Pussy from allegedly 1973. I know it's a 70s film. My Blu-ray, the AGFA version, doesn't actually stipulate what year it's from because they don't know, but Letterboxd has it as 1973. I guess they took a wild fucking guess. I didn't give it a star rating because I wouldn't say it's a good film, because it's not a film technically. I'm watching it because I'm wanting to do a comparison of my shortest runtime Blu-ray. That's a feature length, so not A Trip to the Moon, but an actual feature-length film according to the rules, and my longest. And this is the shortest one I have, and it's porn. Like, it's straight up X-rated stuff. It's mostly 90% of the runtime is people having sex. Just the one couple. And they're angry and bickering the whole time. Like, oh, look at this magazine, I want you to do this. Why can't you just suck my dick good? What's wrong with you? Well, you're an arsehole, why can't you do this good? And that's just the whole movie. And then the Batwoman surrogate character, because I don't know how many times I could say that particular word, she eventually appears in the film, realizes, hey, I'm getting horny, that means that there's crime happening and people are having sex in my city when they're not allowed to be or something. So she uses a bouncy ball to go all the way across town, like, stops a guy from sexually harassing or mugging or whatever a woman. It's such a wide shot that it's hard to bloody tell, but she beats up a guy in the middle of a park, bounces the rest of the way to the apartment, and then instead of stopping the people from having sex, she joins them. And then that's the rest of the goddamn film, is them all having a kind of threesome. It's very graphic. You see everything. It's very funny. I'd recommend it as very funny, very silly, and short. I wouldn't recommend it if, A, you want to watch porn, because trust me, there is a lot better porn that isn't this. Half the time you can actually hear the director giving them cues, because they don't cut shit. Literally, like, you'll have the audio completely drop, and then you'll have the actors look up towards the camera, and then they'll either go back to doing what they were doing, or change it up a bit, but, like, try to say that it's like the characters are like, hey, I have a better idea, let's do this. Or they literally just say, sorry, what was that? And then the audio drops out again. By the second half, they've given up. Like the Batwoman surrogate falls on the floor at one stage, they have a laugh about it, like, everyone's cracking up laughing, and it's just like... And then they just get back into it. It's just like, what is happening? It's so bizarre. It's iconic because of just how fucking weird it is. So I guess I would recommend it. It's pretty fun. It's just kind of a waste of time at the same time. But I watched Document of the Dead, which is the extended definitive cut, which is like 100 minutes long. This came with, luckily, Second Sight, their 4K and Blu-ray set for Dawn of the Dead, has this as a special feature. They've got two cuts of it. They've got the initial extended cut, and then they've got the definitive cut, so I watched that. The first hour of this, which is the original runtime, was like 66 minutes. It was just them filming, like a students over a weekend, filming with the Dawn of the Dead crew for a couple of days, seeing a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff, actually being in the film themselves. One of them becomes a zombie, which is pretty great. Gets a pie in the face, all kinds of shit like that. And it's got a great interviewing and exploration of the film, interviewing Romero and the cast and everything. It's really great. Like, it's a great showcasing of how they become a filmmaker and what the filmmaking process is like. And they're referencing Martin, which had come out the year prior. They reference Night of the Living Dead. It's really fun. And then the next, like, after the first hour, it just becomes hey, they're meeting up again, and it's like 20 years later, and they have a discussion about something. They're talking about Two Evil Eyes, and because they're on the set of that, they show them making a scene. Really fun. I forgot that scene was in Two Evil Eyes because I didn't like that film. So, really funny. I'm pretty sure I preferred Romero's half over Argento's half anyway. And that's a whole great section, but the thing is, that's showing the process of just one whole day trying to get one effect shot, and every other time this guy comes by Romero sets, it's the same shit. They're doing an effect shot, and it takes them all fucking day. Diary of the Dead, Land of the Dead, they show a little bit of Survival of the Dead, but yeah, so it keeps stretching, like it keeps going and going and going. There's a whole meetup thing during the Land of the Dead shooting where they've got like actors from Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, like the original actress who played Barbara is there, and it's fun to have that, but a lot of it's just feels like B-roll. It feels like a featurette, like, oh hey, you know, the Second Sight release has a featurette called When Sean Met George, or When George Met Sean, because it's George Romero hanging out with the guys who did Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg. And that's a featurette. That's a bonus feature on a disc. Most of this documentary, the whole second half, should have just been a fucking bonus feature, because there's no reason for it to be in the documentary. It doesn't add anything. It just like feels like so much of excess stuff that you just don't need. And I just didn't care much for a lot of it. Like, I like this stuff because I love these films, and it's great to see this stuff, but I'm like, what is this contributing to the documentary? When they're showing behind-the-scenes stuff of the other films, it's all the same information that was already repeated earlier. It's just, hey, we're just doing it again, but it's a couple years later. I'm like, yeah, I guess. I don't know, interview George a bit more or something. And then when they do, he's just at a Comic-Con thing, like at a booth at Comic-Con, and they're just talking to him for like 5 minutes, and that's it. Like, they were allowed, oh, you can talk to him for like 5 minutes, and then he has to get back to signing autographs. He even admits that he could just be doing that for the rest of his life and could just retire. Which I think he did after Survival, because people didn't like Survival, so he just retired. So, yeah, it's strange in a way, the whole second half. Like, it's still nice to have that footage. I'm never not going to like that it's there, but it's not necessary for the documentary at hand. It clearly feels like the documentary guy was just like, I want to keep adding stuff to it. So they just kept filming. So I feel like if Romero kept making films, he would have kept coming back and adding more stuff to it, which would not be necessary. And then we have The Frighteners, which I watched the director's cut, the extended version on Blu-ray. Hadn't seen it before. Another one of those mid-90s, late 90s Peter Jackson films just prior to doing Lord of the Rings. Dee Wallace is fantastic in it. I had watched the Cujo panel, not Cujo panel, on the Cujo Blu-ray. There was that Q&A with Lee and Dee Wallace, and they talk about this for the last couple of minutes. And she's really good in it. I didn't love her performance at first, but then as I realized what her character was there for, I got to really enjoying her performance. But it's a fun film. It's a comedy horror at first, and then just becomes kind of more of just a straight-up horror film by the second half. You know, all the goofy antics of the ghosts becomes, oh no, there's an evil ghost killing people and we have to stop it. And it becomes like a lot more dire and thriller-like. It's pretty good. Really fun. Michael J. Fox is great. It's got some great effects. A lot of the CGI looks dated, but who gives a shit? It's just, they're ghosts and it's cartoonish. It's like watching Casper and complaining that the ghosts don't look realistic enough. I'm like, who gives a shit? So I think it works for what it is. And the director's cut, I found no real flaws to it or pacing issues. Like, I could imagine the theatrical cut might be a bit tighter, but I was happy with the director's cut, so, yeah. Last but not least, we have Ali. This is the Michael Mann film from 2001 with Will Smith, the boxing one. That's a biopic that takes place over 10 to 15 years of Muhammad Ali's life. You know, starting with him winning the heavyweight championship, and then all the shit that happened between that and his final fight with George Foreman. It's interesting. I don't know. This is again one of the letter A ones I wanted to, you know, get down off my list. And it was actually when I was doing a bunch of Michael Mann films, either early last year or the year prior, this was the one I got up to. And I just couldn't be bothered watching it. It's still kind of weird to watch a Will Smith film after the Oscars fiasco. And it's just like, And it's really funny because Jada Pinkett Smith is in this and he's yelling at people, and I'm just like keep Snapchatting my mate like he's yelling at someone about talking about his wife. It has no relation to what's actually happening on screen, but I think it's funny. The film itself is interesting. I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't overtly huge on it because it felt like it was missing something, some like real heart and soul to it. Like it knows how to deliver the personality of Muhammad Ali, but I feel like it needed more of that. It was very politically driven, which is fine. He was a very political figure. It still has enough charm. It has some of the romantic angles that he had. Jada eventually just vanishes from the film, and suddenly he's got a wife and kids. And I'm like, okay, when did this happen? What's happening here? Why are we just cutting between that stuff? Is it because this is the shortest version of the movie? Because this is the Blu-ray release, which is a re-edited commemorative cut that came out the year after Muhammad Ali died. This came out in 2017, this version. It even ends on the final frame by saying, Muhammad Ali, the year he was born, to 2016, which obviously was not in the theatrical cut because he wasn't dead yet by the time of the theatrical cut, which that theatrical cut was like, I think it was 2 hours and 36 minutes. And then the director's cut was 2 hours 45, so they still cut out 5 minutes of footage and added 15 minutes of footage. And then this version cuts out the whole 15 minutes in total. Like, it just becomes a 2.5 hour long film. Which I wouldn't say it has pacing issues. Visually it's still really interesting. It looks like a Michael Mann film. It sounds really good. Will Smith is interesting as Muhammad Ali. Again, he captures the charm and political elements quite well, which is good. There's some fun characters. There's some obviously noteworthy political people, and like Malcolm X and Sam Cooke and whatnot. Like, there are people I recognize from American history of that time period, but I don't know much about Ali himself, strangely. Like, I've always known about him because he's a famous sports person. You usually know about them, even if you don't know what the fuck they did. I knew he was a boxer. That was about it. I didn't realize his life was this political, and realistically, if you want something about Ali, I would probably recommend a documentary instead. I assume there's probably heaps of documentaries about Muhammad Ali that are a lot more interesting and descriptive than this movie is. But because the movie is about... It's hard to say what it's even about. It's just that time period of his life. Is it about the fighting, like the boxing? Not really. But is it about fighting in general, like as a theme? I guess, because there's the boxing, and then there's fighting the US government, there's fighting racial prejudice and stuff like that. There's a lot of different things of fighting that. There's fighting for his religious purposes and stuff like that. There's no fighting between him and his partners, which is good. So I guess there's that. But yeah, still interesting. I'm happy to have it in the collection. It still feels like a Michael Mann film. Like, watching it, I'm thinking, will this feel like a Michael Mann film? And then I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, this feels like a Michael Mann film, like visually and everything. I'm like, this is so... it feels exactly like something... It wouldn't maybe say Heat, but some of the scenes like Heat. But it definitely feels like a precursor to like Miami Vice and Collateral. So yeah, and of course Jamie Foxx is in it as well. He has a lot of recurring cast that mixes between his 90s work and his 2000s work. So yeah, it's very interesting. Anyway, that's all for this month. I'll see you kids next month, where we'll talk about myth and other stuff. And yeah, that's about it. Bye.